everyone, and welcome to the Becoming an Empowered Parent online series, offering expert tools for embracing imperfection, building connection, and creating more peace and joy within your family. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm your host, Debbie Zeichner. I'm a parent coach, a mindfulness facilitator, and a licensed clinical social worker. And today I'm so thrilled and excited to be joined by Renae Fieck of Rising Moms. Welcome, Renae.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So today Renae is joining us and we're going to be talking all about decluttering, which is an area that I have a lot of interest in. I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in it, and I'm so excited to dive in. So before we dive in, I'd like to I'd like to tell you, I am going to read it. I'd like to tell you a bit more about Renae before we start. So Renae is a mom of 3, an occupational therapist, and advocate for moms who desire more grace, space, and rest within their lives. She has found strength beyond her own to navigate life's struggles, multiple miscarriages, life with 3 kids, working mom life, stay-at-home mom life, and a husband with a brain tumor and seizures. She's the founder of the Rising Moms Club, a community for moms who are ready to rise above the chaos and overwhelm of life and busy days, trade exhaustion and the never-ending to-do list for a life with more joy. She is the host of the annual More Than a Mom Summit, the Great Clutter Clean Out Challenge, and the podcast Rising Moms Podcast. So again, Renae, thank you so much for being here. So yeah. Renae and I met, I think it's now almost 10 years ago. Renae was working as an occupational therapist, and she really helped my son who was having some fine motor challenges. And we reconnected a few years ago when Renae launched her company, Rising Moms. And I'm just so glad to be back in touch and reconnected and just learn from all the wisdom and gems that you have to share with us. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how paths intersect and intertwine over the years, right?
I know. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I love it. Okay. So Renae, first, I'd love to begin by just hearing more about you and your journey and how you got into this work.
Yeah. So my big catalyst was probably about 3 or 4 years ago when I was newly found out I was pregnant with my 3rd baby. And then my husband got diagnosed with a brain tumor all in the short little span of a couple of months. And then he had his tumor removed and then started having seizures. And so that year became all about just survival. And because I was doing everything, he couldn't drive. I was still working. I had to go back to work really quickly. I was managing all the kids, everything just was survival essentially. And so we got about 6 months out after my 3rd baby had been born. And I realized I was like, this sucks. This is not what I wanted to be a mom for. This is not what I wanted to do. I feel like everybody is always needing something and I'm exhausted and I don't feel excited. I'm not happy. I don't want to do this. And so I reached out to a couple people and was like, is this postpartum depression? Is this what I'm feeling? Is this what I'm experiencing? And they were like, no, that's just mom life. It's just hard. And I was like, well, I don't want to do this. This sucks. Yeah. And so it was kind of writing that balance of what I've been doing is not working. I don't want to do this anymore. This is miserable. I can't just stay in here. I don't want to just ride through this season and wait till I get to that place where it feels better and then just miss out on all of these moments. And so it was trying to find that balance in the midst of doing both of those. And so that was kind of my big catalyst for how can I stop feeling so overwhelmed and exhausted and feel like there's no joy in each day and it's just stuff everywhere. And so, yeah, that was kind of my journey. And now I've kind of figured out what's worked and what's been helpful for me. And I'm really passionate about helping other moms do the same thing.
Oh, that's so amazing. Well, we're lucky to be able to learn from you.
Thanks.
So yeah, and thank you for sharing that with us. I know that was a very it sounds like a very, very painful and chaotic time. And now here you are.
Yeah. Yep.
You made it to the other side, a testament to it can be done.
And I think that's where anything that we encounter, every obstacle, it's that transitioning, that thought from it's happening to us to this is happening for me. And I remember in that season always saying this is just a part of our story, the whole brain tumor stuff. I was like, this is a part of our story. There's a reason behind this. This is doing something for us. I didn't know it at the moment and it just felt rough and hard, but in that back part of my head, I always knew this is just a part of our journey. And so I think that really helped too.
And it's being able to remind ourselves to look at it that way, which is so hard, right? That there's a lesson in that chaos for us if we're willing to listen and we're willing to look at it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So, the idea of simplifying our lives and decluttering, I know, has become so popular. I hear about it all the time. And every time I come across an article or a post, I want to click, I want to read more, I want to learn more. So, for those of us new to it, I'm wondering if you could just tell us a bit more about what's involved, because my understanding is it's more than just organizing. It's more than just cleaning out our closets. Is that right?
Yeah. So, and what I found, and like when I started doing it, is I remember just being overwhelmed by all the stuff. And I realized how much I was spending so much of my time cleaning and organizing and sorting, just like you said. And it was my dad, he was down visiting one time and he was like, gosh, Renae, you just have too much stuff. And I was like, no, I don't. We need all these things. These things are like, the kids enjoy them. They're good for learning. They're good for play. They're whatever. And then after a while, I realized that was where all of my time was being spent, was picking up and sorting and organizing and taking care of the toys. And so I started doing some research and found that in those early years of becoming a mom, that we usually, our amount of things in our household increases by 40%. And so we're now, think about how much time we're spending managing all of that extra stuff. And then there's other studies and research that I've seen that have said if we eliminated the clutter and got rid of some of the stuff, instead of just cleaning and organizing and sorting it, but we actually got rid of it, that it would eliminate 40% of this housework that we're doing.
Wow.
And so when you look, that's huge. And when you talk to so many moms, when we feel overwhelmed with all the stuff and the doing, that if we were to eliminate 40% of that, how much time that would give us back to do all of those other things that we want to do. And so that became my journey, is like, how can I actually get rid of some of the stuff, the things that we feel like we have to have, that we need in our home, whatever. A lot of it is stuff we don't. And so when I start getting rid of that actual physical, tangible stuff, and starting with the easy stuff, starting with the stuff that we have little emotional attachment to it, because oftentimes we have so many emotions behind why we hold on to our stuff. It's not just, hey, I need this. It's, I'm worried that I'm going to go back to that place where I didn't have the money that I needed at one point in time. Or maybe if I get rid of this, I may need it again in the future and I won't have it. Or like there's so many, or somebody gave this to me and if I get rid of it, I'm going to offend them. Like there's so many emotions in the process. It's not just the physical stuff. But when you start getting rid of that physical stuff, it starts uncovering some of those deeper layers of why we're holding on to things, why we're filling our calendars with stuff, why we're feeling like we have to do all of the things rather than being okay with saying no. And it really starts to allow you to create that space, not just in your home so that you're spending less, but really getting good and intentional about saying no or yes to things. I used to be one of those people that said yes to any free stuff. So anybody was like getting rid of a box of random stuff, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take it. And then I realized how much that was actually stressing me out over time, because now I'm organizing it and sorting it or throwing it away, or just the clutter, like even just the physical clutter. There's so much research out there that says we become less productive. It increases cortisol levels, which is stress. And so if we're feeling constantly stressed out in our home, how are we really intended to be the best moms we can be if we're stressed all the time? So it was such a physical, tangible thing I could do to help eliminate that stress so that I could be more present and be more intentional and start there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know that that's one of the things that oftentimes comes up for us as parents, even, is just the stress of, but there's so much to clean and I can't focus on my child right now because the dishes are piling up, right? There's so much there. And even speaking to what you were talking about earlier, all those emotions, I know there's so much that fear of regret. You know, even I think about things in my closet and I think, but if I give it away, what if I want it one day and then I don't have it, right? And being able to come to terms with that and to look at that and to let go of that, I think is huge. So what would you say, what were some of the first steps that you took? So for somebody wanting to embark on this journey, what were some of the first steps that you took to simplify and declutter?
Well, and I think everybody's journey is going to look a little bit different, but I think some of the biggest things that come up for people is that they feel like they can't do this whole one weekend declutter, like spring cleaning sort of thing. They're like, I just don't have time for that, right? Like time is one of the biggest factors, but we're wanting to regain some of that time back. And so I teach people a lot about consistency, that it's not a matter of how much you do at one point in time, but it's finding those things that are going to make the biggest impact over the long haul. Because if we really want a decluttered life, it's got to become this way of living and a part of what our everyday looks like. So instead of focusing on how can I spend one weekend clearing out everything, just focusing on these small little habits that you can do each and every day, and bringing in that mindfulness that says, do I really need this today? Do I really need this in my home? Can I get rid of this? And so taking those like micro steps, I guess, in a sense. And so maybe you set aside 15 minutes every day to go through one drawer at a time. Or maybe you, every time you're cleaning, instead of just cleaning and putting it away, when you pick something up, you say, do I actually need this? Is this something that I really truly want in my house, or can I get rid of it? And so in the beginning phases, and even till today, I have a box that's always set aside, so that no matter what in my day, no matter as I'm going through, I'm always in the back of my mind questioning those things. Is this something we truly need to have? So instead of just picking it up and putting it away, I ask, is this like, do I really want this? Like, is this adding more joy to my life, or is it causing more stress? And then making that determination. But another big question I get from people is, how do I get the kids on board?
Yeah, I was just going to say, how do you get the kids on board?
Yeah. So in the beginning, you can start with just those things that impact you. Your closet, the kitchen oftentimes is an easy one for moms, because dads and kids don't usually care that much what's in the kitchen. So finding those spaces in your home that are going to make the most amount of impact for you, and letting go of some of the other stuff. You can sometimes come into my kids' room and it's a hot mess, but as long as my kitchen and the living room and those sorts of spaces are picked up, then I feel okay. And so we've kind of come to that agreement of, my husband's closet looks like a crazy show sometimes, and I just let that go and focus on those areas that are going to make the most impact for you. So identifying, maybe it's one or two rooms or one or two spaces that you and the family can kind of agree that this is going to be the decluttered space, and that they can have havoc and do whatever they want to do in this area, and just being okay with that and making that sort of accommodation. But finding ways to make it fun for kids. Like, my kids love getting rid of their stuff. Sometimes, not all the time, but they love that part, because we make it fun and we make it a game, and we make it, and those are all different layers that you could, go into. But really finding, if you're just wanting to take those first steps, it's kind of finding what's going to make the biggest impact for you, and focusing on those little steps there, rather than focusing on how can I create this minimalistic house throughout my whole house, in
one weekend.
In one weekend. Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's those baby steps that make such a huge difference. I mean, I tackled my bathroom counter the other day.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how freeing it was to take all those little sample packets that have been building up.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I'm going to use this. I'm going to try this. And that have been sitting there for probably years. And to toss those, it was like, oh, it's just like such a weight off your shoulders. And I think that there's so much, I think when it comes to involving kids, I feel like there's probably so many opportunities. One, they watch us doing it, right? They watch you modeling it. And then it's like, there's, as I'm sure you do, there's just such an opportunity to talk about gratitude for what we have, and letting go, and who this is going to go to. And it's kind of like passing that on. It just seems like it's just so rich with opportunity for us and our kids. Yeah. And like you said, if one of our family members doesn't want to do it, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's about us. So thank you for sharing that. Because I think, for many, it might be the sort of the whole house has to be done, or else I don't have this decluttered, simplified life. And what you're saying is, it doesn't have to be like that. That we, starting small, starting with us, even starting with one space, is really the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of comes down to like understanding what your priorities are, knowing what those core values for your family are. And so for our family, making memories is a huge core value that we hold as a family. And so when it comes to some of the stuff, when you can give those comparisons and look and determine, so making choices. So my kids, oftentimes they'll want something like a random toy or whatever. And I'll give them the choice, like, yes, we can buy this item, but that will maybe take away from the money pool, the vacation fund that we're building. So do you want to take this $10 toy, or do you want me to put the $10 towards a vacation? And hands down, most of the time they're like, I'll take the vacation, because they understand that those little wins, those little feelings of greatness that you get from a new toy, they don't last very long, but the memories they do. And so it's really helping them, like you said, learn those like longer lasting things that matter the most, rather than just focusing on that dopamine hit in that one little moment that you buy that new toy, you know?
Yeah. And it's a way of also teaching them these decision-making skills, right? And problem solving skills, because they have to stop and think like, gosh, you know, is it more important to me to have that, you know, vacation, or like you said, that little trinket? Sometimes they probably do choose the $10 toy, and that's okay. And so then, and understanding that, but using it as such an opportunity to teach them these valuable lessons is just, I think we forget how much goes into this when we think about, oh, it's just, you know, it's time for spring cleaning.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Thank you for bringing that. You know, I know, you know, so many parents these days are struggling with feelings of guilt and shame and overwhelm. And I think so many parents are putting feeling a tremendous amount of pressure, and putting a tremendous amount of pressure on themselves. And this is part of what really prompted me to create this series, is to really help parents, you know, learn healthy ways of embracing all of our imperfections, the messiness of life, and creating more space for that peace and joy, right? So with this in mind, I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about decluttering our minds.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, you know, what have you in your experience found to be helpful, or what recommendations do you have, you know, for those who might be struggling with these feelings of guilt and shame and letting go, and that harsh inner critic, and how that sort of gets in the way of being able to experience and create that space for more peace and joy?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really just valuable to point out from the very get-go that there's a continuous journey. Like, I feel like I've made so much progress from where I was just a few years ago. But even today or yesterday, I was on the phone call with my mentor, and she was helping pick out some of those places that I'm still holding myself to expectations, and that inner critic that I don't always realize is there, and so understanding that we always have opportunity to continue to grow. And so it's really helpful to have support and community and other people that can help you, that maybe have processed through things that you've done before already and can help you process through that. But I think for me, it's been this ongoing, like going back to the priorities, like understanding what those priorities for me and my family are, and getting really rock solid and crystal clear on what those are, and understanding and really realizing that every other person and every other family has different priorities. So the person that maybe is all in at the PTA, they're at school volunteering every day, all of that, I cannot compare myself to her, because her priorities are different than mine as a working parent. And so our priorities are in different places. And so rather than comparing myself to her, I acknowledge and I thank her for doing her part, because we do need somebody that's there at school, that's volunteering, that's helping the teachers, and that's there. But we also need moms or people in the workforce that are helping keep our healthcare system going, or helping keep our school systems going, or helping keep our, you know, whatever going. Like, we need everybody, like our community needs everybody to be a collective moving forward. And so if one person isn't doing their part, it doesn't work. And so we need both sides of that. And so acknowledging that is where, like, my family is right here, we're doing our part in this way, and they're doing their part in that way, and being thankful for that. And rather than that comparison has been really helpful for me. And
that's huge. I love that. I love that. Having that gratitude for what that other person is contributing.
Yes. And seeing it not as a comparison, but that it actually makes us as moms a better collective together, you know? And I remember a friend of mine mentioning the same kind of idea as Pinterest, that sometimes we get on Pinterest and we see all the amazing, beautiful, wonderful things that are on there. And we start to compare ourselves to, like, this super mom, right? This person that is great at gardening, and she's great at baking, and she's great at all the crafts, and she's great at, you know, emotional regulation, and she's got it all together. When you really look at it, Pinterest isn't one person, it's the collective of the best of all of the different moms, or all the different people, or all the different women out there. And so they're all putting their best stuff together, and then collective, that makes the super mom. And so when we step back and kind of look at that and like look at what are my strengths, like what can I contribute, how can I show up as my best self, and then just laying into that has been really so helpful for me to let go of some of those guilts. Like, I know I'm not the mom that can show up at preschool and be there and showing up every single day. I can't do that. So how can I show up? Maybe it's me donating or whatever, you know, and just acknowledging like, what are the ways I can show up rather than comparing. And that's been huge for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. And there's not one right way, as you said, like we all have what we can contribute. I always like the example of staying in our own lane. That it's so easy to like look over there and what everybody's doing. And as soon as I find myself doing that, I'm like, don't stay in your own lane. Right. So just like look forward and look straight. But I love that gratitude piece that you brought in, and really being able to be thankful for that, because we have to be okay with where we are. And that's not easy for many people. And I understand that it's hard. And as you said, it's such a journey.
Yeah.
It's just knowing where to start. Like, what's that one little thing that I can do today to kind of help myself when those feelings show up? And I think that's a good starting place.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just like acknowledging where we win, right? So I think oftentimes we don't give ourselves credit for the little small things that we're doing. The fact that you're getting up and you're getting the kids out the door dressed. Sometimes we take that for granted, that's actually a big feat sometimes when you've got 3 kids that like don't want to have anything to do with getting dressed, but you got them out the door, you got them to school, you got them there on time. And so acknowledging those small little things. And so that's why I oftentimes recommend to my clients to write down every day 3 ways that they win in that day. So they can be small, they can be subtle, they can be, I didn't blow up at my kids when they smeared poop on the wall, or I made breakfast this morning, or whatever it may be. But the more times that we're acknowledging where we're actually doing well, the more times we're going to start to see that grow. But oftentimes what happens with moms is we're focused on, gosh, I messed up. Oh gosh, I said that. Oh gosh, I did this. And we focus on those things. And then that's what we start to see. And I can't remember what it was, but I saw this video. Maybe it was like Hallmark. I don't know. Somebody put this video out. And it was like the perspective of mom throughout the day and the perspective of the child throughout the day. And so it videotaped like mom just feeling defeated and frustrated and whatever throughout the whole day. And then it showed the same day, but from the child's perspective, and how the child felt like they only remembered those like wonderful moments, them where mom sat down for a few minutes on the floor and played, or when mom did this or whatever. And like, that really truly is sometimes how it is. Like our kids, sometimes they don't see that 1 10-minute window when we blew up. They saw all of the other parts of the day, but we at moms, we focus in on that 1 10-minute moment. And so it's kind of just trying to shift that gears. And so celebrating, like, I did really well today with these 3 things. Yes, I may have messed up all these other things, but these 3 things I did really well, and just focusing in on those.
Yeah. Our brains, there's that saying, the negativity bias, where our brains are like Velcro for the negative and like Teflon for the good stuff. Right. And just remembering that it's finding those little wins, finding the ways that we are showing up and focusing what is going well. It's such a subtle mind shift, and yet it makes such a difference. Just, thinking about how can we clear that space in our minds, right? We're talking about clearing the space in our houses, and it's also so important to clear that space in our minds. So those little steps. It's funny whenever we talk about Pinterest, and I don't know if it's like this for you, but my favorite posts are the ones that show all the Pinterest fails. Like, here's what it was supposed to look like the rainbow cake that looks perfect. And then here's my version. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the total Pinterest fail.
Yes.
Right. It's the best. Yes. It makes us realize like we're all vulnerable, right? Like we all mess up. And I think, like you said, when we are looking at that big collective, it is so easy to compare ourselves. And I think that's where I even say, like, don't go there. Don't even look at it. Shut it down, right? I know so many people who have just have had to take that, social media vacation for a little bit, just to kind of focus on what's in front of them, including what's important to them and their values and their family.
Yeah. And I think that that's oftentimes where people feel like we don't have enough time in the day. Yeah. But if you took a step back and actually looked at where you're spending your time in the day, you might find a lot more time. And so that's one of the biggest strategies I've used to help is opening up, like starting your day from that place of feeling like I already have enough time. I am going to focus my time where it needs to be. And just those small little shifts and that small little shift in the language that you're using, if you're describing yourself as busy and frazzled and overwhelmed, well, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get those things. And so just being really mindful about that way you're talking to yourself. And if you want that more space and you want to feel more joy and you want to feel more peace, start telling yourself that, because that's when you become that, rather than waiting for that moment when it's just going to magically appear when all you're doing is focus on how busy and frazzled you are.
Yeah. So it's really creating that intentionality,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
I find that really helpful. Even just like first thing in the morning, I always think to myself, okay, what's an intention I want to set for myself today? Or how do I want to show up today? And what's that going to look like?
Yeah.
Yeah. It really like changes the whole trajectory, doesn't it? So
yes.
Oh my God, Renae, I could talk to you all day. We can go on and on about this. So as we have to close our time together, one of the questions that I do have for you, just kind of with this series in mind, is what does becoming an empowered parent mean to you?
Yeah, I think becoming empowered, when I was thinking about it, my number one thing is becoming really okay with saying no. I think that freedom, like we talked about, the mom guilt, that ability to be able to say no to a thing or to something on your schedule or to a thought or to somebody or whatever, but that freedom to be able to say no and feel okay with that has been the most empowering thing for me. And I think it took a lot of it took time to do that. It took a lot of practice, but the more you start saying no and releasing anybody else's expectations or any of the guilt and being really conscious about that, like I'm going to say no right now and just step into my own lane, like you said, or I'm going to be thankful that that person's doing it and I'm not, or whatever it may be. And just letting go of those external expectations and the internal expectations, and to be able to say no from a really grounding place has been the most empowering thing for me. And so it's not something that I still sometimes don't struggle with, but like you said, it's this continued process.
Yeah.
But that ability to say and determine a yes or a no emphatically has been the most key for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's also a way of like creating safety for yourself and creating those healthy boundaries that are so important. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Renae, how can people find you? How can they follow you? Tell us where they can see you and follow you.
Yes. So one of my favorite places to hang out is on my podcast. So that's the Rising Moms podcast. And then on Facebook, it's also Rising Moms. And then on Instagram and my website, it's just first and last name. So renaefieck.com. So on Instagram, it's just Renae Fieck, but yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for your passion, your dedication, and all that you're really doing to just help moms to really just kind of embrace and deal with and find ways of managing these feelings of stress and overwhelm and the shame and guilt and all of it, just to really create more of that peace and joy in their families. So thank you. It was such a pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much for being with us. Parents, I really, really invite you to reflect on today's discussion. Renae shared so many insights and tips and tools that I think are so valuable. I know I have so many takeaways. So I really invite you to go to your journals, write down immediately what those biggest takeaways that you have are, and as always, one thing that you'd like to commit to moving forward. And again, Renae, thank you again for being with us. Thank you to all of you actually, I forgot. I think that you have a free offer for our listeners. Is that right?
Yes, I'm in the process of revising what it is.
Renae is going to have a surprise for your offer that you will get to hear about that you can click on below.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here and to join us. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for another day of the Becoming an Empowered Parent series. So
thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Bye.
You're welcome.